fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got really outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go!
Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round number 6 of the iRacing V8 Supercars official series, Season 4 2019, proudly presented this evening by SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network. And it is going to be a fantastic night of racing. 30 V8 Supercars here from Phillip Island. My name's Zach Hanlon. Joining me up in the booth is Ryan Jones, and Jay Kennedy will be bringing us the wonderful pictures that we will be seeing this evening. 26 laps around this beautiful circuit in Victoria, Australia, and the drivers have full access to a very large tank of fuel, so we're not expecting any pit stops this evening, and that can take a little bit away from the action, but as we've seen before in a lot of races here at Phillip Island, Ryan, the action doesn't ever disappoint, and it's going to be pretty difficult for the tyres to be managed this evening, as we're looking at about a 40 degree track temp at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty hot track temp for these drivers to contend with on a pretty high speed circuit as well, which means bucket loads of understeer, which, as you mentioned, it's going to be really hard on those front tyres, really hard on those rear tyres as well, struggling for traction out of these corners, trying to get that power down as soon as you can. So it's going to be a tough old slog for these guys out there, but I'll tell you what, Forza Navi's not struggling at all. Look at the gap he's got in qualifying so far.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive lead to have after the first lap of qualifying. 3 tenths, nearly 4 tenths up on his nearest competitor in Jackson Suslin-Harlow. Wayne Burks found a little bit of pace as well in his One Performance Racing Machine since we saw him last time out, and is up in 3rd position. We're on board with Wayne now as he's coming up to Lukey Heights here. Very tight on the apex, just runs across the curb all the way through the inside, down into MG. Bit of a wiggle under braking then, uses the inside curb nicely to help and rotate the car slightly. Not using any of the curb through the penultimate corner, little bit difficult to get the traction down there, and he's decided to come into the pits on that one and practice a pit lane entry, even though he's not actually going to have to use the pit lane this evening. So Wayne Burke deciding not to finish his second qualifying lap, and in these hotter conditions, it's definitely more reasonable to expect that you're going to get your first lap in on the better time, and quite a lot of drivers will struggle to improve their second lap. Ashley Ruskin struggling a little bit through MG there. Oh, big slide on the entry and a big slide out of there as well, and I would say that Ashley will be bailing on that lap. Big slides coming all the way through, so maybe a couple of adjustments needed to be made to that car, dial some of that oversteer out. But a lot of the cars at the moment look like they have finished qualifying, so we will get our results up on screen. And Forzan El Nabi for Zero Esports will be taking us from pole position this evening alongside Logitech G Alta C Sports, Jackson Suzlin-Harlow. Wayne Burke for One Performance Racing will start from third position alongside Brian Borg for Premier Esports Racing Team. That is an excellent qualifying performance there from Brian Borg. James Mackay will start his Pursuit Sim Racing Machine out of fifth alongside Thomas McMillan. Jake Maloney for Trans-Tasman Racing and Damien Johnson will round out row 4 of the grid. Following them, Corey Preston in 9th position and Brad Newman in 10th. And Ryan will take us through the next lot.
Brenton Hobson there in 11th place ahead of Christian Smart in 12th. Scott O'Keefe and Chris Coxhead share the 7th row off the grid. Sean Thompson from 15th, Kendall 16th. Dean O'Brien from 17th ahead of Craig Jones, Stevie Anson and Braden Nash rounding out the top 20.
And then to round out the final 10 cars on the grid this evening, we have Greg Sharp in 21st position with Claire Mason joining Greg on the 10th row of the grid there. Rob Harris will start from 23rd alongside Terence Stennant in 24th. Vincent Skilbeck will come off row number 13 alongside Ashley Ruskin. Sean Chappell in 27th position, Kenneth Ladder in 28th. Brendan Jackson will start from 29th position, and the only driver not to set a time, Felipe Penna, will start from the very rear of the grid this evening, of which there are 30 cars, so it is a very big grid indeed, especially around these tight quarters at Phillip Island, and not a lot of runoff anywhere. So if you make a mistake, you're on the grass and can get pretty spectacular from time to time. Just waiting for some of the final cars to get onto the grid. So we see Forzan El Nabi now joining the rest of his competitors, and it's a good looking field here at Phillip Island. Always nice looking down the front straight. If it's a track local to you and you've never had the opportunity to go, I do encourage you to. Up on the roof there, directly in center of screen's a nice place to have a bit of a look as the revs rise here at Phillip Island. And Forzan El Nabi gets ready to go from pole here, and it's a nice start from the Zero Esports driver. And Brian Borg also got a really screaming start off the second row of the grid. He's already challenging Jackson Suzlin-Harlow, so that's Wayne Burke. And a little bit of a bump there through turn number 1. Jackson Suzlin-Harlow running very wide, dropping a lot of positions, getting onto the dirt there and recovering well enough. Race not over, definitely. He's got some work to do though. Very tight through these opening sections, and they're coming down into the big first compression here into Honda corner. We're on board with Brendan Hobson. Oh, getting run wide. That's going to be a big accident potentially. Pull it up, please, Brendan. Oh, just managed to get it onto the track. Very intense there for Brendan Hobson. He's had to drop a ton of positions and will also have to clear a slowdown penalty as well. But a great start there. We're going to get a modem simulation replay of some of that because that was very spectacular.
Oh, on the track, there's more contact. And that's Harlow involved again.
Oh no, we'll get to that in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We're just checking out the replay here of Brendan Hobson, and he did a great job to pull that up and get back onto the track. And we'll stay here with a replay of the second incident here. So we're having a look at Brian Borg, and he was alongside Tom McMillan there. And oh dear, that's not good. That's not good for those guys. And Jackson Suzlin-Harlow gets involved a little bit. They were actually very lucky to get away. Oh, a bit more contact. And a lot of cars running very wide up through Lukey Heights there. So pretty crazy action in this first lap, Ryan. But the guys out the front have managed to survive. And Wayne Burke is not letting our leader get away. As there's another car, I think that's Steve Jansen on the grass.
Yeah, that was a wild start to this race, and 30 cars as well. Means there's plenty of action all the way up and down this field, and very easily for the field to get congestion, have incidents such as the ones we've seen already Out front, though, the battle is between the top 3 or 4 cars. Jake Maloney in 4th, on the back of James Mackay, who's just about 4 or 5 car lengths off the top 2 of Wayne Burke and El Nabi. Good stuff for Wayne Burke. Only his 2nd start in the official Supercar series of this season. So here we're looking, he's not in the championship fight, but that means he's got nothing to lose as well.
Yeah, when you've got nothing to lose, you can push as hard as you like. Although I'm sure these guys want to maintain a little bit of their I rating and some safety rating as well. Jackson Susel and Harlow just having a little bit of a look at Brad Newman there, coming down into MG corner as there is a change for position, or an attempted change for position. Craig Jones trying to find his way past Brian Borg. He's been looking for the last lap. He's now opened himself up a little bit to Brenton Hobson as they come down the straight off the final corner, and Brenton's going to have a little bit of a run here as he goes to the left-hand side of the track, but he's not going to get any help from anyone down the main straight as finally the 11 car of Brian Borg does pull out and give him that slipstream, but it wasn't enough to get him past Craig Jones, and we constantly see Craig putting up a good fight for these positions, and he does a very good job of getting away with defending those positions as well. So Brendan Hobson has his work cut out for him, trying to get past Craig in his Mach 1 Esports machine. Here's a good opportunity to into Honda. Craig's already on the defensive, you can tell. Just running a little bit wide through Stoner there and staying in the middle of the road for the braking zone, and round a little bit of a mistake there for Brian Borg, and now round the outside tries Craig Jones, but now he's opened himself up to the inside line, and Brenton Hobson is having another look, and Dean O'Brien in the One Performance Racing Machine is having a look at all of this, and he's hip check there. Wow, that was lucky that Hobson didn't go into the wall there. Managed to just keep it together. It didn't even look like there was much contact there at all, but we'll have a look with Brenton Hobson having 2 gentle contacts that have had big consequences. Oh, really difficult to see that angle there. That was, yeah, very difficult to make a call on that one. Yeah, definitely a touch. Very difficult going through that section of the track 2x2. Very high speed, and it's very narrow. And unfortunately, Brendan Hobson cops the lesser end of that. But we have a look back at Craig Jones now, who is defending from Braden Nash. Dean O'Brien's been able to get through. A little bit of a squeal there from Craig, trying to gather it all up out of the exit of turn number 1 and into 2. Just manages to keep it together, but he's going to have to be on the defensive a little bit again. He's got a little bit of a slipstream this time, so he's got a little more room to play with, and he will be able to hold that position for the time being. But there's some intense pack racing going on here, and they're still very tight all throughout the field. A lot of battles, a lot of trains getting backed up into each other and causing more fighting. So all up and down the field at the moment, there is quite a lot going on. So we will try and cover as much as we can. But right now, Braden Nash is looking strong once again on Craig Jones, who's just appearing to struggle a little bit in the opening stage of this race.
He is, and these drivers, they're very frenetic and frantic at the moment. It is only a 40-minute race ahead of them today, so you've got to make your positions up relatively quickly. And when we were discussing pre-race act, it can be at times tricky to pass on this racetrack at some points as well. So you've got your work cut out for you when you're starting further down the field, and some drivers have made some big gains, but there's not too many big movers, 2 or 3 spots here and there. But so far, despite all of the attrition from the first couple of laps with cars getting knocked off the circuit, there's not been too much in the way of big movers up and down the field. This is back in 16th place. Braden Nash all over the back of Craig Jones, and Nash is one of those guys that's come up 4 spots and actually pretty much the fastest mover, the biggest mover in the field. In terms of fastest movers, that'll be your race leaders, because Forza and Nabi, Wayne Burke have opened up a 1.7 second lead to James Mackay and Jake Maloney, who are on screen now in the battle for 3rd place. Seems like Maloney's got a bit more pace than Mackay in front of him, so he's going to need to set him up here, maybe try and get a run, get through Licky Heights and MG nicely, then get through the penultimate, the final corner, 11 and 12, with a nice run onto that main straight, try and fly one down the inside at turn 1.
Yeah, the last couple of laps, especially pace for James Mackay has just been dropping off 0.6 of a second. Nearly he gave up to the leaders the last time by, so I'm sure Jake Maloney can see that win letting it out of his grasp if he stays behind Mackay for too much longer. A little bit far back on this time by though, so as you said, he's just going to have to figure out a place where he can start to set this up. He's pretty much on pace with the leaders at the moment, and James Mackay has picked up the pace a little bit on that last lap as well, so maybe just a little bit of a mistake there from Mackay. But Chris Coxhead is up 2 positions, didn't qualify particularly well. Seen Chris on the podium a couple of times in the last few races, so down in 12th. I mean, we've seen him down in 12th many times before, but he's having a little bit of a look here on Corey Preston. Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Oh, no!
A bit of a touch there between the two drivers, and Corey Preston is around. Now, oh, and that's another car that's gone off the track. That's the 17 car of Terence Stennett, who's maybe been a bit spooked by that incident up ahead, or possibly some contact, didn't quite see. And this is Corey Preston and Chris Coxhead here now. Mind rewatching that from the onboard with Chris. It's a bit difficult to see on that one. So we're with Chris Coxhead now. Wow.
He was never even alongside him in the end, but unfortunately
He wasn't alongside him. Yeah, it was
Preston
just
did move over.
Corey was just kind of vaguely moving across in the braking zone there, and I guess that can happen. It's a risk you take when you do stuff like that, and I know those guys both knew what they were doing. And for Terence Stennett, it's just a little bit of driver error there, locking the rear brakes and careering himself way off track. It's not an incident that you see very often, that's for sure. Jake Maloney still trying to make progress on James Mackay, getting ever closer, looking definitely nice on the brakes there in the Honda. Maybe just practicing the maximum braking potential of his car so that he can make something work in a following lap. It's very difficult to pass around here without a mistake, and we have seen consistently from our top 3 drivers that they can be very fault-free. And James Mackay, especially in the last few rounds, has been looking very strong. Just small mistake early in this stint has put him off the back of our 2 leaders who have made a little bit of a break, and he's now trying to pull Jake Maloney back up to those guys. Once again, Forzan El Nabi, incredible pace, incredibly consistent pace as well. He's been doing 31 2s and 3s very consistently since the beginning of the race. Wayne Burke just starting to drop back a little bit more. In fact, funnily enough that I say that, both of those guys, or in fact, Forzan does a 31.5 that time round, and Wayne on a 31.4, so just reclaims a little bit of that margin. But the 2 cars behind James Mackay and Jake Maloney, both on 31.9, so that's a half a second loss to our leaders, and can't keep doing that. Just having a look down the field now, Wayne Kendall going through on Claire Mason into turn 1. Nice move there from Wayne, and definitely has that position secured into 2. Jake Maloney, well, we wondered if he was setting it up, and he was, and that was very confident on the brakes. Just a minor lockup at the very end of the braking zone there, and we will now see if Jake Maloney has the pace to pull himself and James Mackay up to our little breakaway at the front.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, because right now he's got, well, when they crossed the line, it was 2 seconds from James Mackay to Wayne Burke, and they will have lost a few tenths in that overtake there too, as simple as it was in the end. As look at this, further back though, Jackson Harlow is getting on the attack now. Thomas McMillan in front of him has got an absolute miracle of Astro, of Altus Esports car, and he's almost up there. He's given him a touch to MG, and he's trying to go the long way, looking to get a cut back now and a crossover up onto the curb, but McMillan just balked it down on the apex there. He knew what Harlow was trying to do, and stopped it from getting done, and oh, he's taken a different line. He was a bit wide. He missed the apex on the initial turn-in, and that allowed Harlow a sniff up the inside. And look at Harlow, he's flashed on the brakes too, trying to get to the inside for turn 1. But it's killed his momentum, but he's going to go deep and throw it up on the inside anyway. And he's just about completed it, but contact, and off goes McMillan. Skating across the grass, going to have a bit of an awkward rejoin at turn 2, right in front of Christian Smart. That checks him up. John Stone, Scott O'Keefe, and Chris Coxhead now, all bumper to bumper, coming out of the southern loop. And I don't quite think Harlow was clear there to edge out to the outside of the track, and unfortunately for McMillan, he most definitely had 650 horsepower of V8 Supercar parked firmly on his outside for turn 1. Here's the replay.
Yeah, well, this will give us a better view. I'm obviously completely unbiased, but yeah, a little bit of front to rear contact there between the two guys. It was a very aggressive move, and Thomas was very skillful in being able to pull that up, although those 3 Gone Rogue Motorsports machines, I'm sure, didn't appreciate the sentiment there. But it looks like one of the Gone Rogue cars has actually had a bit of a problem going into that corner as well. And whoa, that is the view for Christian Smart. And yeah,
kudos. That would have been a scare and a half.
Yeah, definitely. So kudos there to Christian for not making a complete flop of that, and that was lucky for all parties involved. Going back now to this battle pack, that Chris Coxhead has now moved himself up into 10th position, and was in 12th moments ago, and has made himself past one Gone Rogue Motorsports car, and now he needs to make himself past another Gone Rogue Motorsports car, except this time it is the car of Damien Johnston. And Damien is a little bit of a tougher customer, and he's also got a teammate up ahead of him as well, who he can assist and probably have a little bit of a chat to. And Chris Coxhead's actually in quite the Gone Rogue sandwich at the moment, so he's going to have to be careful about what he's doing, but keeping his nose clean for the time being, and just has enough of a margin on either side that he can probably stay out of trouble. But he is going to want to make his way through this pack in the near future. We're just coming up on almost halfway distance through this race, and Chris has been making some good progress. A lot of cars with +4 positions, actually. I think if you've moved up in the race, chances are you've moved up at least 4 positions, and quite a few cars have moved up 5 positions as well throughout this field. So there's definitely overtakes to be had. It's just a little bit difficult at the moment for some of these guys in the train. This one headed by McMullen, Christian Smart taking a very wide entry. And you can see, even though he lost all that ground on the entry there, look at the speed that he's carrying down the straight. He was car lengths back before the corner, and now, if he had maybe had an extra car length, he could have easily sent it up the inside there. He's actually pressured McMillan into running a little bit wide, and might be able to go for a bit of an over-under out of the southern loop. Difficult to get with that car of McMillan parked in the middle of the apex there. It's a nice defensive driving. See if he goes for a little bit of a move. Just dabs the brakes through Stoner corner. Chris Coxhead goes to the inside, then to the outside. Can he hold it on the outer edge? Maybe just. He's still got overlap. Oh, big slide. And tucks back in behind Damien Johnston there. Nice little battle between these 5 cars.
I was checking the speeds down that main straight, and by the end, by the time they reached the brake pedals, McMillan, or Christian Smart, had an extra 10 kilometers over McMillan, which is absolutely huge. And to put that into perspective, what is it? The Formula 1 cars, their drag reduction system gives them about 20 to 30 kilometers an hour. So to get a third of that is insane in a V8 supercar, just for manufacturing an exit off the corner. So if he can do that again this time, he's much closer. So he could be able to launch him into turmoil. And there you go. He's jumped on the brakes quite hard in the final corner. And look, he's already gaining. And yeah, Christian Smart's got that final corner figured out to make overtakes happen. Because again, huge run down the main straight. This time, surely close enough for a look up into turn 1. He's on the brakes a bit earlier than McMillan. And that's allowed McMillan to hold it around the outside on the grass, though, into the southern loop. Coxhead's looking for a move in behind them as well, but Smart's overcooked it through turn 2. He's run a bit wide and has to settle back in right in front of his teammate there. Damien Johnstone has just edged out Chris Coxhead as well. And I wonder if Coxhead's looking for a move up the inside into Honda. Again, goes to the outside. And Scott O'Keefe just in behind, just watching all this going, can someone please let me through?
Yeah, but Coxhead's actually got the better run on the outside line, and that gives him the inside at Siberia. Very nice move there from the V8 Sleuth Esports driver. And now only has one more Gone Rogue Motorsports car to get through. And as we've seen, Christian Smart has been phenomenal out of that last corner. Bit of a shame he wasn't able to get it done to the southern loop. But, bit of a dive there, or a bit of a look from Chris Coxhead. Covered off by Smart, though. And Smart now really in his element in this final corner here. We'll see if he can set it up once again. He's going to have to watch out for Chris Coxhead as well. Coxhead going for a very wide line also. And Christian, not quite the exit that we've seen the last couple of times by. Still good speed. That draft is really helping him, but he just didn't get the exit that we have seen the last couple of rounds. And Chris Coxhead is not backing off. He's there to take any opportunity that arises for him. And he wants to keep on moving himself up through the field, and he will... Oh, big slide there from Christian Smart. And he might have even had contact there with Chris Coxhead. Does look like there's been contact. And... Oh,
no! He's well into Honda. He's hit the back of McMillan. He's lost out to Coxhead. And through goes Damien Johnstone as well, round the outside. And look at this into Siberia as well. Dean O'Brien's in there, Scott O'Keefe. And who's that, Brian Bork? No, it's Craig Jones, 2x2, about 6 or 7 cars. And into Hayshed, McMillan and Coxhead are side by side. Coxhead hanging around the outside.
Yeah, and he's going to have the inside for Lukey, but that's going to throw him on the outside for MG. But it'll all come to him in the final 2 corners if he can hold it there. It's very difficult, though. It's so off camber through MG. He's done it, though, and now he's got the inside line for the next 2 corners. So great racecraft there from Chris Coxhead, moving himself through that field. It was an interesting... I'm not really sure what happened to Christian Smart. I think he just got a little bit on the grass coming out of Southern Loop there, and that really kicked things off for this whole pack, including him having a little bit of an excursion into Thomas McMillan down at Honda as well. So that's really opened this battle up quite intensely. Now Damien Johnston has an opportunity to provoke McMillan into a mistake, and a little bit of a lockup from the privateer, but nothing substantial. Wonder if he's got a little bit of damage, though, to that car from the contact. Johnston having a look into the braking zone. McMillan confident. Oh, no! No, this is...
No! Coxhead's gone.
Oh, that is such a shame. That is such a shame. You could see it happening from miles away. It
and
is the
still
classic...
going on in Siberia. Jones has got turned as well.
It is the classic Phillip Island accident crunch.
That's exactly like the kit Courtney took in, what was it, 2010?
Yeah, a long time ago, but still fresh in the minds of many of us. And he's on board with Dean O'Brien. Yeah, what happened here? So, yeah, that's unfortunate for so many of those guys. And we'll stay on board here because if you have a look at what happens to Craig Jones, he's got Brendan Hobson on the outside there. And he's got Brian Borg on the inside there. And yeah, I'm not really sure that was on for Brian from that angle. But yes, very scrappy from a lot of parties there. And unfortunately, that's kind of ruined what was a fantastic battle pack. And a good drive from Chris Coxhead so far, who was at the time up more positions than anyone else with 6. But that trophy has now been handed over to Dean O'Brien. Greg Sharp sitting in 13th, up from 21st. So he is the driver with the most positions gained at the moment. As we go back to this battle now, which is now Thomas McMillan and Brian Borg.
Yeah, there were some huge gains in that battle. Just up ahead, though, look at Dean O'Brien and Christian Smart skating their way through Siberia. A crossover move there from O'Brien, but he's not got a great run, and Christian Smart is going to go through because O'Brien did not want to go around the outside at Hayshed. And there was some big gainers for all that. The one driver I did notice, because I was watching him at the time, Brenton Hobson, he ticked over from 15th place to 8th place at the end of that last lap. Gained 7 spots out of all that carnage.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm sure there were drivers even further back that picked up probably some more spots as well. Guys like Greg Sharp maybe, who've now latched onto the back of the remnants of what was one of the biggest trains of cars I've seen in quite a while. And they were all battling too, and I think that's just invigorated some of these drivers, because a lot of these guys and cars out here now that were in that pack are skating around the track, maybe just a bit heated and a bit flustered after that incident. Let's go back though. Look at 3rd place. Jake Maloney, he's not been able to put a gap at all on James Mackay, and he's right there with him. He might be looking for a move into Honda, but not quite on for him there. But Maloney, he's struggling to pull that up into Honda, isn't he? You had that thing skating and dancing on the Riz. These guys are 5.5 seconds back off Forza El Nabi, who's left Wayne Burke behind. He's 2 seconds drift, so this is pretty much the battle for 3rd place between these guys. There's about 10 or 11 laps to go. Don't know if they'll be able to get to Wayne Burke, James Mackay, if he does happen to get around Maloney. It seems these two are pretty similar on pace, and probably that draft along that main straight helping them to stay in touch as well. Maloney's made a mistake through Lukey Heights. This has allowed Mackay to the left-hand side of MG. Here's a replay of Braden Nashlow. What has he ran into? This is into Honda. He's just lost it on the brakes and skated off the track into the grass, through the gravel, get it turned around. That has lost him quite a few positions, but through the final corner, Mackay all over the back of Jake Maloney. This draft going to be pivotal down this main straight. He's right in behind that rear wing, now tucks out to the right hand side, fully alongside him, side by side at the turn number 1. Jake Maloney holding it tough around the outside. He's got the inside of the southern loop. I wonder if Mackay's going to try and sit back and set himself up for a crossover here. I think he's run just a little bit wide. I don't know. I think he might have a good run here through the kink and into Honda, but that was good defense from Maloney.
Yeah, it's always... Southern Loop is one of those really funny corners. It always feels like the crossover is going to work, but you get to the exit of the corner and the other car's going just as fast as you are. I think the way that the camber works on that tighter line just doesn't make a crisscross as effective as it might in other situations. And unfortunately for James Mackay, he had the right idea going into it, but as we saw, the exit speed was almost identical from both drivers, and Jake Maloney with that tighter line just able to pull out a little bit more ground over the Pursuit Sim Racing driver as they come up through Lukey Heights once more. And yeah, we were wondering if Jake would kind of pull this group back up to our leaders, but they've been losing substantially, and probably, I mean, maybe they've been doing a little bit of battling that we haven't seen in the last 10 or so minutes. But Wayne Burke has also dropped off Forzan El Nabi as well, and the lap times, I think Forzan must just really be working those tires really nicely. Not a lot of pressure, just out there running laps, because he is so much faster than everyone else right now. About 0.3 of a second faster than Wayne Burke, and then at least 0.4 and beyond to everyone else. So he's really just out there lapping tremendously well compared to everyone else. But it does have to be said, these lap times have dropped off quite intensely since the beginning of this race. Best lap from Forzan El Nabi at 31.0, and his last lap at 32.2. So we're seeing about a 1.2 second drop off, and for other drivers, we're seeing even as much as 1.5 or 1.6 seconds since the beginning of the race. And we're only about 28 laps into this evening's proceedings, and that kind of, I guess, shows you a little bit of insight into why when we have these races where the cars are pitting, that some drivers decide to come in a little bit early and avoid running the tyres out to the point where they're so much slower, because a second and a half a lap, especially around a place like Phillip Island, can really make a big difference, especially when track position is so important. But James Mackay still looking for a way past Trans-Tasman Racing's Jake Maloney, and still not successful, but putting in all the efforts to do so. And Forzan El Nabi once again 32-3 out front of this race, just absolutely in a class of his own at the moment. And then even from James Mackay back to Jackson Suslin Harlow, there's quite a bit of a gap as well, but there's not much of a gap between these 5 cars here. Got a couple of cars that have managed to form themselves up back into a train. It's headed by Christian Smart. We've got Thomas McMillan there with Brian Borg and Greg Sharp, and Claire Mason just on the tail of this one as well. Christian's obviously suffered some pretty bad damage through this race and struggling a little bit at the front of this train. He's still actually up 2 positions from his starting position, so not all bad for this evening's proceedings for him so far, but he's got quite a few hungry cars just behind, and a couple of those cars have also made up a lot of positions as well. Greg Sharp up 8 positions, and Claire Mason also up 8 positions as well.
Yeah, good races for them. I've been watching this battle pack for the last lap or so, while we're also watching the leaders, and Christian Smart looks pretty good through the last sector and a half on the last lap. We'll see whether he pulls the same gap he did last time by. McMillan and Borg, though, they seem to be struggling through that final corner, which isn't great because we know Christian Smart is especially strong in that final corner, but they might be able to put a move on into MG here. He's close enough to think about it. Boy, there was just about a gap there for McMillan to squeeze his car into. Wasn't on for the move, though. Wisely, Christian Smart left him the room. Knew it wasn't going to work out. Now he's got to get this final corner right. But his line is going to leave himself open to Thomas McMillan, who poked the nose up the inside. Smart had to get on the throttle pretty quickly there, and now he's compromised down this main straight. McMillan dives to the outside for turn number 1. Smart leaving himself a lot of room on the left and almost allowing McMillan to go through in the end. Now he's going to be under pressure from Brian Borg in the number 11 machine. Greg Sharp, who looking on as well, just sort of sitting back and analysing and maybe noticing where Christian Smart may be a little bit weaker, because it seems like he's going backwards through this field, and that's probably as a result of the fact he doesn't exactly have a rear wing on that car anymore.
Yeah, I can't imagine the aerodynamic flow is particularly smooth over that Holden Commodore there. And Brian Borg, oh, big slide. I mean, his car's not looking too great either, but he does still have that rear spoiler, although some of the panels on that Falcon leave a little to be desired. Unlike Greg Sharp sitting just behind him, Greg still has quite a clean car in those Penrite colours just behind him, as does Claire Mason. That machine also looking in good stead. Doesn't look like there's really much marking on that. I definitely approve of that colour combination as well, the purple and blue. That gets a big thumbs up from me. But having a look now at McMillan and Borg, and McMillan, great traction there comparatively, but ran out of road on the exit there, and that's not going to put him in good stead for the next corner. And Brian Borg just running a little bit wide there, and actually Greg Sharp has a little bit of a run there. Probably not going to have quite enough room. Oh, he's going to go for it. And McMillan just up ahead of them as well. Doesn't quite get it done. Greg Sharp's going to go round the outside. It's going to be pretty bold. And Brian Borg is going to have the preferred line and down into Stoner Corner as well. And once again, we just see, even on the wider line, not quite able to get the better exit, but he's very close. And Greg might have a little bit of a look. Claire Mason might be able to profit out of this one as well. And Greg Sharp goes down the inside of Brian Borg. And that is a nice move from the Stealth Simforce driver. And there's Thomas McMillan just ahead, trying once again on Christian Smart. Christian, though, putting up a brilliant defensive drive, given the situation that he is in, and still has McMillan laid behind him. But McMillan is relentless in his assault and is still very close. Suspected dive into MG here. Not quite. Borg's thinking about it on Sharp. Sharp loses the rear, but he manages to keep it all together just. Borg's seen that, tried to go for the outside, trying to take advantage. He's going to try and take away the outside entry here for Sharp, and that'll compromise him through the corner. Round the outside, 2x2x2 through the final corner, and now even, is that Steve Jansen getting involved on the tail of this with Claire Mason as well? We got 2x2x2x2. Can't we say more twos? Christian Smart has to yield, as does Greg Sharp, as does Claire Mason. So 3 changes of position there. Will they all make it through the southern loop? McMillan's gotten it done. Looks like Jansen's gotten it done and Borg's gotten it done as well. So nice battle pack here for, what are we for? 10th all the way through to 16th. Oh, that was very close from Jansen. Everyone's getting very tight here. And is that Corey Preston making his way past Claire Mason as well? So Corey Preston now getting involved in this very exciting battle as we get a modem simulation replay of another incident involving Scott O'Keefe and Brenton Hobson. And
I don't think that was contact there. I think O'Keefe just lost it on the brakes.
yeah, hard to say. I don't think that there definitely didn't look to be contact there. But back on board with Corey Preston, having a look on Steve Jansen, who's having a look on Greg Sharp. Greg Sharp leaves the door open and Corey loses it on the entry to the corner there, on the rear. And is that Rob Harris going around the outside? Sorry, Sean Thompson going around the outside of Claire Mason again. So Claire really struggling at the moment after having a great start to this race. Was +8 positions, now only +6 and under quite a lot of pressure as Smart once again under pressure. This time it's from Brian Borg, who's going to try round the outside. That's not going to work for him though. Better off tucking in underneath, just going for the better traction out of the corner. A little bit of a draft as well won't help as they come down and into Stoner corner. And surely we'll see Borg here trying to make a move. It's going to have to be on the outside unless he goes for the late switch. Nice move there from Borg if he can pull it up.
Oh, behind him! Contact was Sharp, and he ripped it up straight in front of Claire Mason.
Oh, that's
Corey Preston was
unfortunate.
involved in that one too. Sean Thompson, we'll get a replay up on the screen from Motor Simulation. I heard a screeching of tyres, had a look, and suddenly there was 2 cars sideways through Honda. So what's going on here? This is Greg Sharp in front of, I believe that's Steve Jansen, who goes to the move up the inside. Corey Preston's behind them, very late on the brakes, couldn't pull up, slides it in, contact with Sharp, who's the unfortunate victim, and then I think in a bit of a panic there, Sharp just grabbed the throttle and unfortunately driven right into the path of the oncoming Claire Mason, who really had nowhere to go, and that's just a bit unfortunate for her and unlucky as well for Greg Sharp, and probably going to put that one on Preston there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was a driver error into a braking zone, and unfortunately, we have seen that a couple of times this evening. It's a difficult braking zone, and definitely also in a V8 supercar, where you obviously have things like locked rear diffs and no ABS, and a big, heavy tube frame to throw around. And unfortunately for Corey Preston, that has come unstuck, and he's now got some work to do to get himself past Brian Borg at the moment. But amazingly, last few laps have been flying by. We only have 2 laps remaining as Steve Jansen goes down the inside of Thomas McMillan there. And I suspect that McMillan's had quite a few incidents this race. I'm surprised he's not having to be careful about his incident limit here. But he's,
the 3 wide! This won't work!
Oh, this is not going to work. Let's see who's going to end up the worst off. Who's it going to be? That is great stuff
No way!
Jansen. And kudos to all 3 of those guys for making it through. McMillan, though, holding it round the outside. Is he going to have the room into MG? He's going to get it given to him as Jansen leaves plenty on the exit, and round the outside will go McMillan, although I think that Janssen will get it through the final corner on the inside, and he does, but he's going to have to possibly defend into one if he doesn't quite get the exit he's anticipating there. Already to the outside of the track, will he weave across the inside? Vaguely, he's gone to the middle of the track. He's not giving McMillan many options here. He's going to have to take a tight line into one. Christian Smart having a look. Oh, there's contact. And that just pushes Steve Janssen wide out. Now he's got to make himself past Christian Smart once again. McMillan's run wide into Southern Loop. That gives Smart the opportunity. And he's got the inside line through Stoner Corner. Will he cut back across for the braking zone? Not going to have the room. And we'll have to give it up to McMillan. Janssen almost in the back. Preston almost into the side of Janssen. And Brian Borg trying to avoid all of that as well as he gets overtaken by Preston. McMillan deep into Siberia. Running it wide, round the outside. Christian Smart gets the position again. As we come through 7, 8, and 9 here up into Lukey Heights. This battle has really taken off in this last couple of laps. And it has been fantastic fun up here in the commentary booth. Steve Janssen looking for a way past the both of these guys. They're all taking the tight line. Somebody go wide, please. And Borg's going to try and go down the inside. It's not quite going to work for him. And it's going to open him up to Preston here as they come through the 2 final corners.
Man, what a battle this is. This is quite some racing. I don't know what to say, really. This is a sensational stuff as Borg's working away at the back of Corey Preston. He's high. He's almost lost it. He's managed to hold on to it. That thing was all sorts of out of control coming down the main straight at over 240 kilometers an hour, and understandably runs wide at turn 1 as Thompson tries to have a look. And look at this up front ahead of them. McMillan gives a shot to Christian Smart. Steve Janssen trying to find a way through as well. Somewhere up ahead. Forsdale Narby's on his final lap as 2. We'll go to him when he comes across the final couple of corners. We'll stay with this as long as we can because there's a sensational look out for it late. McMillan's going to go on the brakes, trying to go the long way around at Honda. He can't quite get it done. Can he keep the overlap? For Siberia, not going to happen. Look at El Narby out of the final corner. Flawless race. No dramas for him. Leicester flag. El Narby wins at Phillip Island. Wayne Burke in second. Maloney after the battle with James Mackay always long ahead and comes home in third ahead of him. Harlow fifth. Let's go back to this battle.
Yeah, as they come up through Lukey Heights for the final time, who's going to be the bravest into MG? Corey Preston's pushing it up. Everyone's trying to push it up as deep as they can to take the title line and defend it to MG. Everyone's staying line astern for the time being, although there's a few little bumps to the bumper coming through the last section of corners. Through the final corner now, McMillan runs a little bit wide. Is he going to have it down the final straight? Preston, he's going to give it everything out of the final corner. Christian Smart holds on. A brilliant defensive drive from an angry pack of cars behind. And what, that was a battle for 10th all the way through to 15th. Great work there from all of those drivers. And all just behind them, another battle for 4 cars as well. Great work from a lot of these drivers this evening, and commiserations for a couple as well in those dying laps. Claire Mason really dropped off the pace after that unfortunate incident involving Greg Sharp in the dying laps of that race, and a couple of other drivers losing out as well. But we'll go to our final results. Forzan El Narby for Zero Esports. Just a fantastic drive away from pole. Wayne Burke in second. Was able to hold with Forzan for quite a while, but round the halfway point of that race, Forzan just extended that lead out to an unattainable gap. Jake Maloney fought hard with James Mackay all throughout the race, but in the end, it was the Trans-Tasman racing driver who came home on the final step of the podium. James Mackay for Pursuit Sim Racing home in 4th. Jackson Suslan Harlow for Logitech G Altus Esports home in 5th position, ahead of Brad Newman for One Performance Racing and Brenton Hobson's Synergy Sim Racing car in 7th position. Scott O'Keefe, the highest placed Gone Rogue Motorsports machine of which it was a very eventful race for Gone Rogue Motorsports cars. And he had One Performance Racing's Dean O'Brien tucked in just behind him. And Gone Rogue Motorsports' Christian Smart headed that intense battle pack that we were following so closely at the end of the race there, and a great defensive drive considering the damage that he had suffered.
Yeah, no doubt. Just missing out on that top 10 spot was Thomas McMillan. Steve Jansen, he came up 7 spots in the end and was involved in that battle for the most part of the final stages of that race. Great drive from him. Brian Borg wasn't a fantastic race, started 4th, back into 13th, was in the wars all race long. Sean Thompson home in 14th ahead of Corey Preston and Craig Jones. Braden Nash, Kenneth Latta, Wayne Kendall, Rob Harris, they rounded out the top 20.
And then we had Ashley Ruskin in 21st, Vincent Skilbeck in 22nd position. Claire Mason, unfortunate, as Claire was having a fantastic run throughout that race and suffered in the later stages. Sean Chappell in 24th position, Terence Stennon in 25th. He had a wild moment earlier in the race, locking up the rears into Honda. Greg Sharp, unfortunately, being spun in the dying stages of that race. He was the second last car on the lead lap, of which the last car was Felipe Pena, who, if you'll recall, was the only driver not to set a qualifying time this evening. And then we had our non-finishers, Damien Johnston, Chris Coxhead, and Brendan Jackson. And Damien and Chris involved in that. Well, maybe not Damien, but Chris Coxhead. He had been having a fantastic race, but unfortunately it all came unstuck in Honda corner with some unfortunate contact there. But some fantastic racing here for round number 6 of the iRacing V8 Supercars official series here at Phillip Island. And we were very proud to bring you this evening's action on SimSpeed TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. We will be back with the official series next week at the same time, where we will be, if I can remember, Jay, help me, what track is it? Barcelona. I can't entirely say that I endorse that decision, but it will be the first time that we see the Australian V8 Supercars at one of the most iconic tracks on the motorsport calendar, and a obviously Formula One track as well, which will be very interesting to see. But from myself, Ryan, and Jay up here in the commentary booth, we do thank you so much for joining us this evening for what was an absolutely fantastic evening of racing, and we do look forward to seeing you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top
Oh
here.
my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my god.
God, what?